We live in an age of reboots. Franchises like Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, The Planet of the Apes, Batman, Superman, and the movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe have all either been revived with new movies or completely rebooted. Even cult classics like Blade Runner have been brought back with sequels. And while I, like many of you, am kinda getting sick of these reboots and unnecessary sequels in movies, there seems to be one industry that has ignored this phenomenon almost completely. Anime. The anime industry is sitting on a treasure trove of well-known manga that have been adapted poorly, despite having well-established fan bases that could really use a reboot. Think about it, there are so many anime adaptations out there that have missed the mark, either due to budget constraints, poor pacing, or simply not having enough episodes to do justice to the source material. These are series that deserve a second chance to shine. I've narrowed it down to 5 anime that I believe deserve a reboot the most. But before we dive into that list, let's talk about some honourable mentions. 7 Deadly Sins. While I do agree that the adaptation of this anime post season 2 was done poorly, mainly due to the god awful animation, the source material itself isn't without issues. After reading some of the original manga, it's pretty clear that the quality dips as the series goes on. The manga is definitely better than the later seasons of the anime, with some great art and fun moments involving characters like Escanor and Meliodas, but the story itself isn't leagues better. It doesn't feel interesting enough to warrant a reboot in my opinion, when you consider how the narrative quality declines. So while 7 Deadly Sins definitely had potential, I just don't think it's interesting enough to deserve a full-on reboot. That said, fixing the animation in the later seasons would have gone a long way. Hajime no Ippo. I went back and forth on whether to include Hajime no Ippo in the main list, but ultimately decided to keep it in the honourable mentions. Hajime no Ippo is a great anime, and while its earlier seasons suffer from the slow pacing that was common in the 2000s, the later seasons do not. It's also mostly an excellent adaptation of the manga, so I can't really in good faith include it into this list. Even though this is like in my top 10 anime, so it was hard, trust me, I got a strong bias for this one. If anything, Hajime no Ippo just needs a continuation, much like Bleach received. A whole reboot would be a little redundant since the existing seasons are already fantastic, especially when you consider that they feature some of the best animation that a prime Madhouse studio ever produced, probably outside of One Punch Man. Redoing all that will just waste time and resources. Just give Hajime no Ippo a season 4, man. Alright, on to the list. First up, we have Deadman Wonderland. This anime aired in 2011 and left fans feeling deeply unsatisfied. They did the show dirty, man. There are several reasons why Deadman Wonderland desperately needs a reboot, and the biggest one is how the anime strayed away from the manga. You'll notice a trend here. Deadman Wonderland suffered from a phenomenon that was very strangely common in the 2000s and 2010s. You rarely see it nowadays, and that is the anime original ending. Instead of following the manga to its conclusion, the anime diverged significantly from the source material, wrapping up the story in just about 12 episodes, with an ending that left us all scratching our heads. This abrupt conclusion not only failed to capture the essence of the story, but also left numerous plot threads hanging or just straight up cut them out. The manga, on the other hand, takes its time to flesh out characters while diving deep into the dark and twisted world and building suspense that keeps the readers on the edge of their seats. They also showcase more creative uses of the blood powers, which would be amazing to see in modern animation, especially after seeing how Mappa animated the blood ability in JJK. The anime also cut out significant portions of the manga, including key characters, subplots, and entire arcs that were crucial to the understanding of the full scope of the story. Characters who played pivotal roles in later parts of the manga were either underdeveloped or entirely absent in the anime. These omissions robbed the anime of much of the depth and complexity and kinda just made it a typical shonen. The manga itself isn't the most deep thing ever, but it's a very fun read with the art and the blood abilities making fights very interesting. Deadman Wonderland has a unique and fascinating plot that blends psychological horror, action, and dystopian settings. The story of Igarashi, a middle schooler who's wrongfully accused of mass murder and sent to a twisted prison where inmates must participate in deadly games for the entertainment of the masses, is both gripping and horrifying. The manga explores themes of guilt, redemption, and the loss of innocence in a way that the anime simply didn't have time for. A reboot could give this series the time and attention it needs to properly explore these themes, allowing for a more faithful and satisfying adaptation that does justice to the original work. And if anything makes you interested in this manga, forget all of the writing and etc. The powers are just interesting as fuck, man. If you're sick of seeing ki blasts and kamehamehas and fucking chidoris and all that shit, and if you enjoyed watching the blood powers in JJK, you will definitely enjoy the fights in this manga. So just give it a read. Again, it's not the best thing ever, but it's very interesting. Some of the uniqueness definitely feels refreshing and adds to the experience. Next up, Promised Neverland, or The Promised Neverland officially, but I never called it that. A series that started off incredibly strong with an excellent first season but took a nosedive in its second season. Similar to another anime in this list if you've been watching anime for a while. The first season of Promised Neverland was a near perfect adaptation of the manga's opening arc. It was praised for its suspense, storytelling, tight pacing, and faithful adherence to the source material. Fans were excited for the second season, expecting it to continue in the same vein. However, that was some bullshit. The second season got rushed, it was disjointed, and skipped over entire arcs and characters that were essential to the story. For some reason, the studio made the decision to end the anime in one season, with hundreds of chapters left. Again, I don't know why they do this, but we're here. The pacing was all over the place, with important plot points being glossed over or removed entirely, leading to a lackluster and confusing narrative. One of the biggest grievances fans had with the second season is how it cut out some of the best parts of the manga. By cutting it out, the anime lost a lot of emotional depth that made the manga so compelling. And if you thought that was bad, the second season introduced anime original content that didn't align with the tone or direction of the manga. These new elements felt out of place and didn't add anything meaningful to the story. Instead, they further diluted the plot, making the season feel like a poorly executed fanfiction rather than a continuation of the beloved first season. As I mentioned earlier, anime original endings and anime original content were very common in the 2000s and 2010s. I thought we might have got past that, but apparently the studio that developed Promised Neverland wanted to bring back that trend. And what makes it worse is that although the ending of season 2 was similar to the ending of the manga, it was a speedrun version that lacked any of the build-up and skipped most, if not all, the significant moments leading up to it, effectively ruining the ending and the show and the manga for anyone who was watching. Unlike other shows that have anime original endings, you can still kind of read the manga and gain enjoyment from there, knowing that the ending will be different. But having this Frankenstein version of the ending already shown to you essentially ruined the show and the manga for anime only, since all the best moments were spoiled and all they had is just terrible adaptations to deal with. A reboot could rectify these mistakes by sticking closely to the source material. I know, right? A crazy concept. Allowing for a more faithful adaptation that captures the suspense, psychological intensity, and emotional depth that made the first season so beloved. The Promised Neverland deserves a reboot that does justice to the full scope of its story, giving fans the adaptation that they were originally hoping for. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I post these types of videos every week, and let me know what anime you think should get a reboot. I'm sure you'll have an opinion. It seems like a contentious topic. And yeah, back to the video. Number 3, you knew it was going to be on here. I can't make a list of anime reboots without this being on here. Number 3 is Tokyo Ghoul. This series had immense potential but was ultimately let down by its anime adaptation. The first season of Tokyo Ghoul was very well received. It followed the manga fairly closely and managed to capture the dark and gritty atmosphere of Sui Ishida's world. However, from season 2 onwards, the adaptation took a sharp turn for the worst. Tokyo Ghoul Route A, the second season, introduced anime original content. I told you before, this would be a trend, and it diverged significantly from the manga. The change in direction left fans confused and somewhat disappointed, as it failed to capture some of the complex themes, characters, and moments that made the manga so popular. Season 2 in itself wasn't entirely bad, and looking back, it's actually much better than its following seasons, but unfortunately it was the start of the divergence that made Tokyo Ghoul unfortunately get worse. One of the biggest issues with Tokyo Ghoul, even more so than some of the previous entries, is how it cut out and altered some of literally the best parts of the manga. And not only the best parts, but some of the most pivotal parts of the manga. The manga is known for its intricate plot, deep psychological themes, and well-developed characters, but much of this was lost in the anime adaptation. Key scenes and character development were either glossed over or omitted entirely, leading to a narrative that felt disjointed and incomplete. Kaneki and Arima, one of, if not the most important fights in the series, was skipped. This was a pivotal moment. I literally can't emphasize enough how pivotal of a point this fight was in the manga. It literally shifted the status quo of the entire story on its head. For some reason, season 2 skipped this fight, and season 3 began with the aftermath of the fight, leaving fans confused due to the missing context of the situation. I don't think I can actually emphasize how retarded this was. This is like skipping Goku versus Piccolo at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z and just flying straight into the Saiyan arc and wondering why fans are asking why Piccolo's helping Goku. It made no sense. This decision was completely brain dead. If you're wondering why I'm using analogies and being a bit vague, it's on purpose. Read the manga. Its reputation and high praise are fully deserved. The third and fourth seasons were particularly bad. rushing through the story and failing to properly convey the emotional and thematic depth of the manga. The animation also took a major dip down. People don't really mention this as much as Seven Deadly Sins because that art and animation was god awful, but Tokyo Ghoul was still pretty ass season 3 onward. The animation became stagnant and boring and even ugly at times. The introduction of anime original content in Tokyo Ghoul A was the first major misstep. Instead of following the manga's plot, the anime chose to take the story in a different direction, leading to a confusing and unsatisfying narrative. The decision not only alienated fans of the manga but also made it difficult for newcomers to understand the story. The anime original content lacked the nuance and complexity of the manga, resulting in a watered down dogshit version of the story that failed to resonate with audiences for obvious reasons. A reboot of Tokyo Ghoul could correct these mistakes by sticking closely to Ishida's original vision. By faithfully adapting the manga, a new anime could properly explore the psychological and moral dilemmas faced by Kaneki and the other characters in this twisted world that they inhabit. With better pacing, better animation, more consistent storytelling, and a focus on character development, a Tokyo Ghoul reboot could finally give the fans the adaptation we deserve. Next up is Berserk, a series that is often regarded as one of the greatest manga of all time but has yet to receive an anime adaptation that does it justice. The 1997 anime of Berserk is beloved by fans, but it also only covers some of the Black Swordsman and Golden Age arcs, which is just the beginning of the manga's story. While the adaptation is praised for its faithful storytelling, strong character development and dark atmosphere, it also leaves out much of the epic saga that follows. It even cuts some of the parts of the 2 arcs that it does cover. Fans are usually suggested to start Berserk by reading the manga instead due to these missing parts in the anime. The manga delves into a much larger and more complex narrative exploring themes of fate, revenge and the human condition in ways that the 1997 anime just never had a chance to. Unfortunately, that is where it ends for good adaptations in terms of Berserk. The more recent adaptations of Berserk have been absolutely terrible, truly some of the worst shit ever put on an anime screen. The 2016 and 17 adaptations attempted to continue the story beyond the Golden Age arc, but were plagued by horrendous 3D animation and poor sound design. I'm not even joking, I've seen stickman battles on YouTube with better sound design. The CGI was jarring and awkward, somewhat reminiscent of Overlord Season 3, failing to capture the intricate and brutal art style of Miura's manga. The sound design, which is crucial in crafting the dark and foreboding atmosphere of Berserk, was subpar and even worse so, comedic, further detracting from the experience. These adaptations were a huge disappointment for fans who had been eagerly waiting a continuation of the story. Berserk is a legendary story that deserves a top tier adaptation. Kentaro Miura's epic tale of guts, a lone warrior struggling against the forces of fate in a dark and twisted world, is one of the most compelling and emotionally resonant stories in manga history. Some might even argue that it transcends the medium. The manga's complex characters, intricate plot and deep philosophical themes make it a masterpiece that deserves to be experienced by a wider audience. A proper adaptation of Berserk would require high quality 2D animation that stays true to Miura's art style, along with a carefully paced narrative that allows for the story and themes and characters to shine. With the passing of Kentaro Miura in 2021, a well done Berserk adaptation would also serve as a fitting tribute to his legacy. Miura's work has had a profound impact on the world of manga and anime, inspiring countless creators and leaving a lasting mark on the industry. Many popular manga authors themselves wrote notes and wrote their condolences for him when he passed. A reboot that faithfully adapts his work and brings the story to life with care and attention would be a nice way to honor his memory and introduce his masterpiece to a new generation of fans. Next, we have One Piece, a series that might seem a controversial choice for a reboot given its massive success, but there are several reasons why it's worth considering. So there you have it, the 5 anime I believe are in most need or most deserving of a reboot: Deadman Wonderland, The Promised Neverland, Tokyo Ghoul, Berserk and One Piece. Well, I guess it's the top 4 anime that need a reboot, but yeah, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and yeah, till next time.